On behalf of my entire family, I would like to thank you all for coming today to honor my mother and her contributions to the community. As you may know, my mother had deep roots here in Hillsdale County, extending back 4 generations. She also inherited a strong tradition of community involvement, and after honing her talents as a teacher at Reading High School, as well as a principal. In retirement, my mother gave her time to many community organizations, all of them dedicated to making Hillsdale a better place to live. Here at Mrs. Stocks Park, she carried on the vision created by her dear friend Mary Ann McRitchie to restore and beautify this place. With the members of the Mrs. Stocks Park Committee, the Hillsdale Garden Club, Michelle Lauren and her team at City Hall, and many other community volunteers, Mom devoted countless hours to weeding garden beds, raising funds for special projects, promoting the summer concert series, and much more. Together, they truly have made the park a community treasure once again. My family and I deeply appreciate the efforts of the Park Committee, the Garden Club, and many others in making this event possible today. I would like to say, too, how grateful we are to our friends who have made gifts in memory of Mom, to the Hillsdale County Historical Society, and to Mrs. Stocks Park. Just today, a friend of my mom's from the Women's Club gave me a copy of a poem that my mother wrote a while ago about Mrs. Stocks Park, and I thought this would be a nice opportunity to read this poem. Over the streets to Mrs. Stocks Park, working to dig the weeds, what a lark, until my poor back starts to bark. Then I know 'tis time to depart, soon to return when flowers start. Mina Stocks saved the land from blight, now bees and birds know where to light. Many people do walk this fair sight, holding teas, 'tis garden club delight. Concerts heard too on Tuesday night, restoration we do with all our might. Thank you very much, and again, I hope to visit with you after the program.
Is next.
My name's Alan Dimmers, and I was Sarah's first cousin. That's because I called her Sarah. Sally's father was Harry Dimmers, and he was the older brother of my father, Albert Dimmers. I remember them, Sally, first when they lived down on Dimmers Road, roughly 10 miles south of town, and then they moved up to the Stone House, the Fieldstone House, about a mile south of Hillsdale, on Hillsdale Road. Sally, of course, lived with her family, Walter, who was her brother, Harry, her father, and her mother, Sarah Elizabeth. The name Sarah Elizabeth needs a little discussion here, at least from the family standpoint, because Sarah Briggs, who just talked to you, well, of course, Sally, name was also Sarah Elizabeth. We called her in the family Elizabeth, so I could call her on the telephone and leave my number and say that Elizabeth, Alan's called, and she'd call me back without any problems. Then Sarah Briggs, who talked to you today is named Sarah Elizabeth also, but to the family, she's Susie. So thanks, Susie. Her daughter is named Sarah Elizabeth, and she's Liz to the family. Any rate, that's a little family information about names. Sally, of course, passed away in California while visiting her son, J.D., who's a dermatologist there, and her brother, Walter Dimmers. I talked to Walt, and he trying to find out some little different incidences about her. I guess the last time a couple days ago, and he told me about when they lived down on Dimmers Road. Sally and a friend of hers used to lure him out onto Dimmers Road in his bare feet to the point where, and then they'd pedal away in a bicycle and leave him there to cry. Sally, of course, went to Hillsdale High School. She went to Michigan State, where her excellence in studies got her, rose an honor, and she was inducted into mortarboard. I remember when she married her husband Jerry, her brother Walter and I drove to East Lansing, and Walt was driving. I wasn't old enough yet to drive, but we had a flat tire and we had a terrible time getting there. We almost missed the wedding. I also remember when Sally lived in Bellevue in South Bend, Indiana, she and Jerry, her husband. We flying with her father, Harry Dimmers, who was a great pilot, down to visit them in both places. Sally, of course, during her lifetime received many honors. She was honored by receiving the Book of Golden Deeds given by the Exchange Club here in Hillsdale. Also, in 2018, she received the Michigan Governor's Award for service, outstanding public service to the people of the community. She was determined, thorough, self-sufficient, and she did everything really well. I was on the Salvation Board with her, and she took her job seriously. One February day, it was a snowy day, she came in and sat down beside me at a board meeting, and I thought she'd been in California. She was. And I said, well, why aren't you in California? She said, well, I had to come back to the board meeting and I flew back last night. And I said, well, what time did you get in Detroit? And she said, about 1 o'clock. And I said, who picked you up? And she said, I drove myself. So that's pretty good for a woman who was about 90 years old at that time. She, of course, was known in reading, at least according to some of my people I knew, the teachers over there, as Super Sally, which tells a little something about what they thought of her. A church conversation with my wife one time after working on a rummage sale for about 5 or 6 hours. They were getting after her and said she ought to go home and rest, and she finally says, well, I guess I better get home. I have to mow the lawn. This is all typical of her. And then finally, one day after church, probably 6 months ago, I found out she'd driven someplace at an odd hour, and I was getting after her and told her all you have to do is make a telephone call and someone will take you and things. And she gave me a bunch of excuses, and then I finally said, well, Sally, the only thing wrong with you is you're too stubborn. She looked at me and she says, it runs in the family. All I can say is, it's been great knowing you, Sally. Goodbye, and thanks for all the work that you've done for our community.
Thank you, Alan. It's nice to hear those inside family stories. So Joanne is here from the Hillsdale Historical Society. Joanne Miller.
I got Sally. Sally did have tremendous roots in this community. Her knowledge of history was encyclopedic. She was probably the first person I went to, in fact I know she was, when I joined the Historical Society. I asked if I could shadow her when she was giving tours of the poorhouse. I had already had the opportunity to take my 6th graders to the Fairgrounds Museum during the fair, and Sally would be there to take them through the museum. And I was aware instantly that she was a wonderful teacher and that she really loved her topic. In the Historical Society, Sally was always there to do what needed to be done. And when she took something on, it would be done extremely well. When reluctantly she retired from the board on her doctor's orders, 2 of us took on the Christmas open house. Kathy Fowler and I walked into a situation that was so well organized, and I mean, all we had to do was follow through, but it took two of us to do it. I have joked for years that Sally has always been my ideal. I always wanted to be Sally, but I have never had enough energy. The greatest thing with Sally is that we became friends. I looked forward to our dates when I would have her all to myself because she was such an interesting person. She was just so much, she was so easy to be with, and I came away with so much more than I had gone into our date with. She will be very much missed, but oh my goodness, are we fortunate that she walked through our lives.
Thank you, Joanne. Liz Webb is here, and she's going to speak from the Garden Club.
Some of my remarks have already been made, but I bet you wouldn't mind hearing them again. Representing the fourth generation of her family to live in Hillsdale County, Sally, our beloved nonagenarian, carried on a long tradition of community leadership and involvement. Born in 1926 to Harry and Sarah Dimmers, she and her brother Walter were raised on the farm in Hillsdale community, as we've already heard. We haven't heard this. Her father started the Hillsdale Dairy. Her mother was a homemaker who loved history and eventually started the Hillsdale County Historical Society. Sally's grandmother had started the local 4-H program. So those are the details of her ancestry into community leadership. She came from a family that gave their all to their community. She did graduate from HHS, Hillsdale High School, in 1944, and from MSU with a bachelor degree in 1948. While there at MSU, she met her husband, Jerry, who was a returning veteran, and they were married in East Lansing, as her brother just told us. Sally taught in several school districts. The one you've heard most about is Reading. She taught there with my mother, by the way. There were two Ediths, Edith Ryan, Edith Ash, and there was Sally. And then she became the librarian and the principal. But that was just the beginning for Sally. A tireless volunteer, she provided visionary leadership for the many local organizations she joined in her retirement. She followed in her mother's footsteps and joined the Hillsdale County Historical Society, serving as its president from 1996 to 2006. How often have we seen her dressed beautifully in the manner of the late 1800s, as Joanne did today, at the Farm Festival days in August, or at the Christmas tea, both held at the Poorhouse, made famous by Will Carleton. Whether serving with distinction in the American Association of University Women from 1989 to 2012, standing up for and providing comfort to battered women on the Domestic Harmony Board, 1992, or joining the Women's Club and serving as its president, 1998 and 1999. Sally gave of herself and graciously utilized her talents for the betterment of our community. But she had energy to burn, so she could do even more. She served on the Hillsdale Cemetery Board since 2005, and the Hillsdale Salvation Army Board since 2008. Are you feeling guilty yet? And now to the heart of the matter for those of us in the Hillsdale Garden Club. She joined and immediately became a hardworking member of the Hillsdale Garden Club in 2011. In 2004, she had supported Mary Ann McRitchie in her quest to save and then restore Mrs. Stocks Park. When Mary Ann was no longer with us, Sally led the beautification of Mrs. Stocks Park as the president of the Mrs. Stocks Park Committee, working and cooperating, as we've heard, with the city of Hillsdale. This was done over years in partnership with other members of the park committee from the Garden Club, such as Diane Miller, whose vision you are looking at, Colleen Savarino, Connie Erholtz, Louise Worms, and the entire Hillsdale Garden Club. What Sally did for the Hillsdale Garden Club and the community at Mrs. Stocks Park will be a lasting, beautiful tribute to her, carved in the blooming flower beds and the graceful tree line of the park itself. That tribute will be heard as well in the ongoing Tuesday summer concerts in Mrs. Stocks Park that Sally promoted tirelessly to help provide a summer musical venue for the people in Hillsdale. Sally had written much about this park, including this succinct history. Mrs. Stocks Park was originally established in 1898 by Wilhelmina Stock, the wife of the mill owner, F.W. Stock, the mill right across the road. Before the park was created, the 9-acre parcel was a black, mucky, snake-infested swamp. To assuage her grief over the loss of 3 young children in 3 successive years, Wilhelmina vowed to turn the swamp into a park. She worked tirelessly on the project for 10 years, always making the park open to all. It was the showplace of southern Michigan. Over the years, the Stocks Mill was sold and the park became neglected and unkempt. In 2003, the city of Hillsdale acquired the title to the park. Under the leadership of Mary Ann McRitchie, the Mrs. Stocks Park Committee began the project of restoration with financial help from the community, the Hillsdale County Community Foundation, and the Hillsdale Garden Club. In her work as the head of Mrs. Stocks Park Committee, Sally wrote beautiful letters asking for support for the park from individuals and businesses in the community. The paragraph above about Wilhelmina Stock was included in one of those letters. And if you made a contribution to help restore and maintain our park, you would receive a lovely handwritten note from Sally Fallon. Just this spring, the Hillsdale Garden Club applied for and received the prestigious May Duff Award from the National Garden Club for the restoration of an historical park. It's the highest honor the National Garden Club gives for such restorations. I regret that the award was made after Sally had passed, and so she never knew of the national recognition of her work here. Her valiant efforts in restoring Mrs. Stocks Park have helped to create the valued community gathering place that we enjoy here today. Sally made a stunning difference in our Hillsdale Garden Club and throughout the Hillsdale community. She will be missed in many ways, but especially on Thursday mornings at the park, propped on her knee pads, weeding or planting yet another of the profuse gardens established here. We stand on your shoulders here today, Sally, and we thank you for leading the way.
Thank you, Liz. Betty Blunt from Reading is going to be next and tell of Sally's days at Reading School.
Good afternoon. I know by now you're going to say, well, now what can that woman add, right? Sally was sincere, she was diligent in her service and her work for Reading High School. My memory of Sally involves a new superintendent by the name of Bruce Kefchin, who phoned me to ask if I could attend a short meeting at his office in about 30 minutes. I said yes. He would like to introduce me to the new principal. When I got there, I noticed that Sally was there when he greeted me. And then he proceeded to introduce me to Mrs. Fallon. I knew her as the Reading High School librarian, as the new Reading High School principal. I congratulated Sally, and she explained that they were working on the new school year schedule and would be adding a couple Spanish classes to meet the students' needs. She said, Betty, we're very proud to have an experienced teacher who earned an MA in Spanish literature through Michigan State University. She liked that place too. The Honors College and a National Foreign Language Institute scholarship. She was always complimentary and kind. It was a proud moment for me with Principal Fallon. I had a hard time with that at first. I was delighted. I'm going to quote for you some of these remarks. Jerry Kerspillo, who was a fellow librarian at Reading Elementary, said, "As I reflect on the opportunities I had to spend time with Sally, the word grace comes to mind. She seemed to carry herself with such calm and peace. Sally could make me feel as if I were the most important person that she would encounter that day. I always felt, as if she were glad to see me, wanted to hear what I had to say, and was so willing to share her time, her life experiences, and genuine friendship, not just with me, but each person she encountered. I'm blessed, very grateful, and thankful to have known Sally, and forever am a better person." Jerry Kerspillo, fellow teacher at Reading Community Schools. Now, no principal is free from a prank. Yeah, there were a few pranks pulled on her, and she even admitted one to a few of us teachers one day. It seems one of her shoes came up missing in the library. And it was found by a student who had a bit of a stuttering problem. And he came up with the shoe behind him, and he wanted to assure her that, in his worried look, he said, "I didn't put your shoe on the ledge outside the library window, Mrs. Fallon." And Sally, of course, knew that he was not that kind of a student. So she assured Gregory, she said, now, looking straight at him, she said, "Of course, you would not have done such a thing. I know that, Gregory." And he left jauntily. That worried look went off his face, and he had a beaming smile, so wide, and he was very happy as he left the gym that day and wandered on down the hall. Our WCSR Reading area news reporter, winning marathoner, sportscaster, announcer, Andy Barnhart emailed me, and he said, "I had Mrs. Fallon, never ever Sally, for several classes in high school, including Shakespeare. She took me to worlds that I never knew existed. What adventures I had reading, all under her kind and learned tutelage. Definitely my favorite teacher." Jan Radeball, Hedgecock, emailed me. "I really love Mrs. Fallon. She was ready for anything that came her way. And she encouraged me to go to London, England with the John Owasso College. They had a trip for any senior who was able to go to visit London and Canterbury and Oxford, Dover, Scotland, and Wales. I was so honored to be able to go. It was the most amazing time of my senior year at Reading High School. Because of her, I saw other parts of the world I never would have realized." Back in October of 1973. "Thank you for letting me be a part of something so wonderful, remembering a loving and wonderful lady and teacher." And finally, a few words from a Hall of Fame coach and coach of Reading's Division 8 state champion football team, Rick Bailey. We're very proud of Rick. He said, My memories of Sally Fallon was that she was a woman of kindness. As a first-year teacher, more than once she offered me a word of support and encouragement. By my 4th year, Mrs. Fallon moved from the library and became the principal, where she continued to offer her support to her staff and embrace the students. The thing I remember the most, though, long after she retired from reading, she would continue to follow Reading High School, and on more than one occasion, after a successful baseball or football season, Mrs. Fallon would send a congratulatory card to me. At one point, while I was working as the high school principal, Mrs. Fallon visited my office after a particularly good season. She just wanted to thank me for the years of service, commitment to our students and teams. It was a really nice gesture and made my day. I probably had not seen her for the past 15 years. It just goes to show that kindness was Mrs. Fallon. And in the words of Paul Harvey, and now you know the rest of the story.
Thank you, Betty. It was lovely. Diane Miller is going to speak on behalf of our committee, Park Committee.
On Tuesday evenings, before the concerts would start, you would find Sally at the front gate, welcoming everyone who passed through. With a smile, she would say, "Thank you for coming. So glad you're here. It is good to see you." The concerts were very important to Sally. She wrote letters for fundraising, the events that we had annually in the park. She wanted to carry on the wishes of Mary Ann McRitchie, which you've already heard. And so we still have concerts in the park. Thursday mornings are our work time in the park, and our Sally never missed a work day that I can remember. Even if she needed to wear her back brace or forgot her hearing aids. That made her very mad if she forgot her hearing aids. A woman in her 90s, she did what needed to be done. Sally would arrive on time, wearing her knee pads and carrying a bushel basket in one hand and a cane in the other, asking, "Where can I work on my knees?" Sally had a favorite tool. It was called the Cobra tool, a large hook with a cobra head on the end. It was used for prying or just whacking at the weeds. One day Sally was working on her knees with her Cobra tool at the front fence under the mulberry tree, and I happened to be walking by. Just as she raised the Cobra tool over her head, I see the victim. It's a hibiscus just emerging from the soil. It's June and a late starter, looking like a healthy weed. I caught the Cobra head in mid-flight. Sally says, "Oh my God, it's not a weed, is it?" Yeah, I bought that Cobra head at the estate sale, and I have it in my garage, and I'll think of her forever.
Thank you, Diane. And now we have a recording that Adam Briggs and his wife, Genevieve Beaulieu, played. They are in Chicago and unable to be with us today. So we are having a musical feature from them. Colleen Savarino, also from the Park Committee, Garden Club, and many other
Thank you.
things.
Some beautiful music, and I'm the lucky one that gets the honor to dedicate the 4 new picnic tables that we have in the park that have been tirelessly worked on to get done for today, and Wardmore built them. Sally always wanted more picnic tables, always wanted a picnic, be down here, see people, and enjoy them being around, enjoying this park. And the family, Fallon family, and the Mrs. Stock's Park Committee gave the money to present these to the park and for everyone to enjoy. So I'd love to know you're going to come down and use them. And by now you recognize that Sally was definitely our ever-ready bunny, always giving and going, giving back to her community and her family. So thank you for being here with us, and enjoy.
Thanks, Colleen. And thanks to Ward for being here and all the work he's been here a lot lately, but he's here to enjoy the program as well. As we conclude our formal program, I would like to acknowledge and thank our musicians that have been our background music since 3:30. They are called the In Accord, and they will be playing until 5:30 for our enjoyment. I'd also like to thank Corey Champion for arranging the sound system, and thank you to Brian Watkins for recording and streaming our program for Sally's family, who couldn't be here. Thank you too to Michelle Lauren for her assistance throughout our planning. We invite you to enjoy some ice cream, more social time, and more music, and a walk in the park. Please excuse us if you see a weed here or there. The park is 10 acres. There is always more work than volunteers and workers. If you would like to help us, we start on Thursday mornings, and we are here from spring till fall. We'd love to have you come and join us. Thank you for coming today. Oh, yes. We also have a beautiful bench here that one of our volunteers, Victor, come forward, Victor, has made in memory of Sally. This was kind of a surprise to us, and it's a delightful surprise. So thank you, Victor, very much. He's going to stand by his bench. It's handmade, and I believe it's walnut, and he's going to have it secured in our the garden, at the big garden across the pond there. So thank you very much. And we are serving ice cream, and we are getting ready to, if you give us about 3 minutes to get it ready, we will be passing it out to you. So don't go away.